I would like to call to order the regular governing board meeting for the Jefferson Elementary School District for February 27th, 2019. May you please get members present.
Shakil Ali.
Here.
Marie Brizuela.
Here.
Maybelle Manio.
Here.
Manufo Leah Inga Anuai is not present. Clayton Koo.
Here. Next is the Pledge of Allegiance. That will be led by students from Westlake Elementary School. Cool. Thank you. Next item is item 4, board meeting guidelines. Board members will review the board meeting guidelines and report how well they adhere to the meeting guidelines at the end of the meeting.
I know.
Okay, cool. Next item is item 5, approval of the agenda.
I move that we approve the agenda.
Second the motion.
First and a second, all those in favor say aye.
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 Next item is item 6, special presentation. 6A, Westlake Elementary School's Safety Patrol.
Good evening. I promise I won't talk long because I know you're not here to hear me talk, but I just have to say I'm so proud of the students at Westlake Elementary. And just to highlight this, the beginning of the year, I'm a new principal. There was a conflict, and I was talking to these kids and saying, you know, can we start over? Some of these kids were brand new to the school, and they're like, of course we can. This is Westlake. We treat everyone with kindness. And that was like my first 2 weeks of school, and it's been like that ever since. So I am going to introduce Mr. Jamie Ramos, one of our wonderful teachers at Westlake. I have never seen, including the one I ran, such a wonderful, well-run, energetic safety patrol. And I'm so grateful and pleased to introduce Mr. Ramos.
Oh, Brent.
Want a magnifier? My eyes are changing.
It's okay.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I have the privilege of working with 16 wonderful fifth graders that you see here in front of you right now, who signed up to become Westlake School's Safety Patrol team. These responsible and dedicated students show their commitment in making sure that our students can be picked up safely by their parents after school. Rain or shine, strong freezing wind or mild weather, you can always depend on these kids to take their post on the streets of Fieldcrest Drive and West Lawn Avenue. Taking this role requires them to develop patience and to recognize the importance of teamwork. Majority of these kids are my former students, and I always remind them that our world is not perfect and traffic will always be a problem. But be proud and find the joy in knowing that at least you are doing something about it. These kids will not be here tonight without the love and support of their parents who believe in them and recognize that at their young age, these kids are taking ownership and doing something noble for our school. Tonight, 4 of these kids would love to share with you why they chose to be a part of Westlake School Safety Patrol team.
Hello, my name is Melina Escobar, and I decided to sign up for the Safety Patrol team because the importance of leaving school safely is important to me. As Westlake's Student Council President, I truly want the kids of Westlake to grow up and know that it's not okay to double park. Mainly because at school, double parking is a big problem that we are trying to fix. And I must admit, the double parking problem has gotten better, but it still needs some work. And that's why us traffic patrol people and teachers are helping make our school a better place. And that's why I joined Safety Patrol, because without us, Westlake wouldn't be the safe place it is today. My name is Melina Escobar, and thank you for listening.
My name is Monel Paducay, and I decided to sign up for the Safety Patrol team because I've seen so many problems after school, and I want to help fix those problems. I also signed up because it's my last year in elementary, so I want to make it the best year and try new things. Traffic patrol is important to me because it helps me improve my social skills, and because if somebody's waiting for their children for too long, I'd be able to ask them to move so the children already waiting behind the fence can be picked up quicker. Traffic patrol is also important to me because I got to help the adults and children who are waiting to cross. My name is Monel Paducay, and I thank you for your time.
Hi, my name is Angela Valdivas, and I decided to sign up for the Safety Patrol team because I wanted to experience how it feels like to be part of the team, and especially because it's my last year in Westlake Elementary. I wanted to try new school clubs like Traffic Patrol. One of the joys of being a Safety Patrol is when we get the chance to work with our former teachers. It also makes us proud that we can help both parents and students to go home safely after school and avoid any accidents Of course, then are still parents who don't follow the rules by double parking and argue with the teachers. We also have to hold our rainbow umbrellas to protect us from the strong wind and rain while we do our jobs, especially these winter months. But we still continue to enjoy our responsibilities since this is our last year, and we wanted to set an example to the next generations of 5th graders that they can always give something back and choose to make a difference in our community.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Emily Liang, and I decided to sign up for the Safety Patrol team because I wanted to experience what it was like to be part of the team. One day, when I was about 5 or 6 years old, my mom was parking her car when I saw a traffic cop put a ticket on a car. I asked my mom what the man was doing, and my mom told me that the person who owned the car had parked incorrectly. So the traffic cop was giving them a parking ticket. If the owner of the car didn't pay or resolve the ticket by a certain date, the money they owed would increase. At that moment, an idea popped into my head, and I glowed with excitement at that thought. So excited that you could practically see the money signs light up in my eyes. Right then and there, I decided to become a traffic cop. To my 5-year-old self, it seemed that I could go around giving people tickets and then I'd get rich. But then, as I grew older and older, my dream to become a traffic cop slowly faded away. Then, when 5th grade came around, we were given the opportunity to be part of the Safety Patrol team. I decided maybe I'd try it out and then I could fulfill my childhood dream. Of course, it's not exactly like being a traffic cop, but at least both jobs help keep people safe, and that's what's important to me. My name is Emily Liang, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to share why we decided to become Safety Patrols of Westlake Elementary School.
Thank you very much. Do my fellow colleagues have any comments or?
Well, my first response is wow. You all are so articulate. Those sounded like claim essays from English class. So anyway, I was a traffic patrol person too when I was in school, and I remember how important it was to me, and it was really good for me to hear your enthusiasm and see your energy and how you take this really seriously. And it is something that's serious. And the first speaker with Melina, right? Yeah, I like that you said it's really important to you just to get home and walk home safely. That's important to us here as well up on the board. So thanks for your service and keep up the great work.
Well, you guys were great, wonderful. Oops. And thank you for coming tonight and talking. And you're right, it is a problem. You're right. And it's at all the schools. And I just wish we could take you, and you can talk to the other schools too. But you did a great job. You're also enthusiastic, and wow, you could have sold me anything. But I'm really proud of you. Keep up the good work, and know that you can speak up when you believe in something, and you can speak up to make a difference. And that will follow you through the rest of your life. Remember, okay? All right, thank you.
I do. I'm pretty much going to say the same thing, but I want you to know, well, first, your sense of responsibility, I am in awe of. Most children aren't as enthusiastic as being as responsible as you guys, and that is very important. And that and the skills that you're learning in this program will definitely transfer through different aspects of your lives. So thank you all for your service and for being a part of making our schools safer for you. Thank you.
I want to join everybody else and just say thank you for all you guys do, making sure that Westlake Elementary is a safe school, as well as making sure that everybody who walks around there and drives around there feels safe just in general, because especially right now in the rainy season, I think that's even more important than ever. So I just want to say thank you for all you guys do, and thanks for all the teachers and staff for helping make this possible. So I have a couple certificates for the students who presented. I also wanted to acknowledge that we actually have certificates for all the students as well who didn't present, and we gave that to the principal, and she'll pass that out afterwards. So.
Of appreciation for participation in the flag ceremony and a special presentation.
Are we going to do a picture at the end, or do you want, we get a picture now? We like pictures. Thank you.
I have one certificate of appreciation for participation in flag ceremony and special presentation. Manel.
Thank you.
And I also have a certificate of appreciation for participation in the flag ceremony and special presentation to Emily Liang.
Thank you.
And last but not least, I have a certificate of appreciation for Angela Odivas.
Thank you.
Thank you again. The next item is item 7A under Communications, Board Member Acknowledgement and Commendations. Do you want to go first? Okay.
Just commending the students once again and the staff at Westlake Elementary.
Good night. No, I'll pass.
Okay. I'll pass as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't even really do it.
Next item is item 7B, Correspondence and Superintendent Comments.
I kind of couldn't either.
Correspondence and Superintendent Comments.
I think they can't either.
Yeah, I have a few quick items I wanted to give an update to the board. So first is we received our review from the County Office of Education on our first interim. The only item of note that I will highlight here is that they strongly encouraged us to fulfill the promises or the expectation for those reductions in future years. and they will be reviewing our second interim that will be presented to you at our next meeting to ensure that we're making progress toward that. The second thing is I attended the 17th District PTA Luncheon for Founders Day yesterday. Could only attend for a short while, but when I did attend, I saw Assemblymember Kevin Mullen receive an honorary service award for his commitment to education and including his community in the education budgets conversations that he holds. We are in the midst now of recruitment season. Mr. Valenti and I went to a recruitment fair yesterday. We'll have a team at the San Mateo County Teacher Recruitment Fair in a couple of weeks, and I think there's a few others that will be coming up, so we are well represented there. And lastly, on February 9th, the board held discussions around our handbook and our protocols, and I received those. They will be coming to the board at the next board meeting for you to continue to discuss and to adopt it as our governance handbook. So, thank you.
Thank you. Next is administrator comments. Okay. Next is persons wishing to address the board. This portion of the agenda is available for individuals to comment or address the board on any issue that is under the board's jurisdiction and not on the agenda. The maximum time allowed is usually 2 minutes. Any speakers? Okay, no speakers. Next item is item 8A, consent agenda. Is there any discussion?
I move that we approve the consent agenda.
Second the motion?
There's a first and a second. Can I get a roll call, please?
Mr. Ali?
Aye.
Mrs. Brizuela?
Aye.
Ms. Manio?
Aye.
Mr. Koo?
Aye. Next item is item 8D, Governing Board's appointment to the Personnel Commission. The Governing Board will consider action to name Mr. Ron Appel as its appointee to the JSD Personnel Commission for the 3-year term that began on December 1st, 2018. On October 24th, 2018, the board previously announced Mr. Appel as its intended appointee and held a public hearing on the appointment at the November 14th, 2018 meeting. Are there any comments, discussion, or motion, if anybody wants to make one?
Based on the information that we received from County Council on what procedures we could be taking at this time, should I read them? Read what they said? Okay. All right, so it said that we can go forward with the appointment of the nominee or nominate someone else, make a substitute appointment, or make some other recommendation in terms of process. And so that's what we have to, it wasn't listed on here, but that's basically what they advised us to do. So, if anybody else have anything to say, all right, anything? Because if not, we can make a motion.
Okay.
All right.
If there's no more comments, would someone like to make a motion?
No, any comment? Any
No
comments?
comment.
Okay.
Any comment?
Then I'd like to make a motion that we send out another advertisement and advertise for persons that would be interested in serving on the Personnel Commission.
Is there a second?
I'm sorry, Marie, do you mind repeating that one more time?
I said that we would, of those 4 recommendations he gave us, that we would go ahead and re-advertise it to let other folks know in case they're interested in applying. And kind of the, one of the purposes for that also would be that generally people will not put their name in if they know an incumbent is putting their name in. So it gives it's open for anyone that would like to do it, that would like to put their application in.
Can I ask Mr. Vidal's a question?
Sure.
So if we reopen the application process for applicants for the Personnel Commission, do you know what the process would entail?
Well, it would be very similar to what we did last time, where we would advertise broadly for a period I would not recommend doing it longer than 2 weeks because we've been without a full personnel commission now for over 2 months. We really would like to get something filled as soon as possible. So probably the board would be reviewing this at the end of March to make another nomination and or selection at that time at our March 27th meeting, if that's how the board decides to go.
And county council said we didn't have to do the whole same long procedure.
Yeah, we do need to give the public an opportunity to hear of the opening and to put in their application, so I think a 2-week period is sufficient for that.
Yeah.
And where would you advertise that?
Same places as before. We advertise at our local public libraries, we advertise at our school sites, we advertise in the San Francisco Chronicle, we advertise in the San Mateo Daily Journal.
We can't do EdCal for this, EdJoin for this?
No, EdCal is a statewide newspaper, and we need local residents of our district, so it needs to be a local publication. Yeah.
I'll second Marie's motion.
Okay, as first and second to...
I have some questions.
Sorry, go ahead.
So how long did we advertise the last time?
Last time we advertised at least 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks.
And how many applicants did we get?
We received 2 applicants, and both applicants met their requirements.
Are we allowed to advertise for it? Like social media or anything like that?
I can get the announcement to you so that you can distribute it as you like.
Okay.
Is there any other discussion, comments? Seeing none, Megan, please get a roll call.
Mr. Ali,
Aye.
Mrs. Brizuela,
Aye.
Ms. Manio,
Hi.
and Mr. Koo.
Aye. Next item is item 8E, 2019 CSBA Delegate Assembly Election. The board will select up to 3 candidates to be considered as delegates to the CSBA Delegate Assembly. Mr. Vidal is...
How many we get to do?
3.
3?
Yeah, we have a vote. The board can vote for up to 3 candidates, and I believe you have 3 candidates to select from. So somebody can make a motion to nominate 1, 2, or all 3.
I'll make a motion to nominate all 3. They're good people.
I was going to just, like, before you make the motion, I was going to say I know the 3 people being nominated, Ms. Carrie Dubois from Sequoia Union High School District.
Yeah, I
who
do
the
too.
other 2 people?
Yeah,
Mr. Greg Leland from the Centennial Union High School District.
And Davina Drapkin.
Davina Drapkin. I've worked with all of them either through the Delegate Assembly or the SMCSBA, and I think they're really smart in terms of a lot of stuff going on in the county and statewide, and I think I would support electing them for Delegate Assembly as well.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's the first. I guess I get the second. Can all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Well, I'm happy to see we have more delegates now from our region, our area, because for a while there they were all from, Burlingame on someplace, and we need to be represented as well, especially Daly City being in the largest city in San Mateo County. We should. So this time we do have more, so I'm glad.
Next item is item 8F, updated job description for the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services.
Definitely been updated.
Yeah, so this job description that you have in board backup has not been updated since at least 2008. The job has changed tremendously since that time, and we've just grown with the job description and adapted as we've moved along. So as we seek new candidates for this position, we felt it important that we identify the job as it exists today, and this job description captures those elements.
Oh, it's not going to hinder anyone applying. No. She does so much.
They have big shoes to fill. So.
Yeah, I know. Okay, so
Any other questions or comments on the item?
I'd like to say I like the way this was written, so it's just to the point and not big sentences, so it sounds really good. Nice. So, anybody have anything? I'll make a motion that we approve the job description for the Assistant Superintendent of Educational Services as
Second.
presented.
There's a first and second to approve the updated job description. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Want to change your mind?
Next item is item 8G, selection of architectural firm to design faculty and staff housing project. Ankrum, Mosin Architects, and Lowney Architecture will present to the board information about the firm's project experience and expertise offered to our district. Mr. Dallas.
Yeah, let me provide a little bit of background. So early this year, early January, Jefferson Elementary School District, the construction management and project management firm, RGM Kramer, issued a request for qualifications and proposals for architecture services for the faculty and staff housing project. On the due date of January 25th, 5 statements of qualifications were received. After all submittals and proposals were evaluated, all 5 firms were evaluated to interview on February 5th. Of the firms that were interviewed, the interview panel agreed that the 2 firms presenting tonight would be of best value for the district. Tonight we have Ankrum Moison Architects and Lowney Architects. They're here to present tonight. I have a little bit of a note-taking guide if you want some kind of a graphic organizer, and I did print out the basic fact sheet for each of you as well.
Thanks.
And just to make this fair, I did put their names on sheets of paper, and I put them in a cup, and I'm mixing them to see who will be first. As I mentioned, these were evaluated by district staff as well as our project management staff. All 5 firms that we interviewed were highly qualified, and they were all very close to each other in terms of all the other technical aspects of the qualifications. We selected these 2 because we felt like they were better matches for our project, our size of project, and what we might want to do. And we ask that you today consider them and see what might be a best match for our district. So the first firm that we invite up is...
I just wanted to tell you, the bunch of trees over there got knocked down.
Yes.
Yeah, so that saves them.
That saves us. Yeah, Mother Nature is taking care of some of the tree clearing that has to happen. The first firm that we'll invite up is Ankrum Moison, and they'll have 15 minutes for a presentation and questions, and then we'll invite our next firm up, and then there'll be time for discussion.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. My name is Travis Throckmorton. I'm a principal at Ankrum Moison Architects. We are a large firm with offices in San Francisco, Portland, and Seattle. And almost all of our work involves providing a bed of some sort, whether it's senior housing, affordable housing, market rate housing. And the one thing that we told the team when we first met with them was we're grateful for the sponsorship of this project. We, in our marketplace, are obviously having issues providing enough housing, providing housing that's affordable. And for this district to take the step to sponsor this project is really, to me, it's just vastly important. I have 2 children at OUSD. You guys understand what's going on there now, so I can just say that to me personally, this is a big deal. To me, we need alternatives for providing housing in the entire Bay Area, probably really across the country, but we'll stay focused here. So we thank you for having us. I think we can go to the second slide. We're not. Oh, thank you. I am in control. So our team, as I said, I'm the managing principal. Jason Roberts is a design principal. Let me backtrack really quickly before introducing you to the folks. We've selected a team based on folks that have expertise and experience in projects very similar to this one. Jason Roberts has designed housing projects of every scale you could imagine. He also supervised the design of the modular projects that we've delivered. So he's on the team as a design lead. Christopher Gebhardt is our project manager, and he's served in that capacity for several housing projects that we think are very compatible in scale and technical requirements as this project. Ferdinand Ramirez has been a job captain of ours who has led the detailing and construction documentation for several projects of similar scale and size, and her teaming up with Chris have delivered several projects for our office very successfully, and we believe that they're eminently qualified to lead this project. Robert Lecker is not here today. He is our foremost expert in modular housing. We know that this project may or may not go modular, but having his expertise is important. He's a resource for our entire firm, so he will be a technical advisor to our team. And this is essentially the team that we've put together. In terms of quality control, et cetera, we have other team members, but this is the core team that would represent our firm in dealing with the district and this project. Very quickly, I love our mission statement because it captures so much of what I find important about architecture. Create places where people and communities thrive. Placemaking, creating places that are memorable, places that feel like there's a reason to be there and that they have an impact. We really strive to create projects that have an impact, but at the end of the day, it's people and the communities that they serve and that these projects are in. We have to always remember that we're designing people's homes, and we really approach the unit that people live in as the foundation for the project. We love great architecture with fantastic detailing and great materials, but at the end of the day, these are people's homes. So that's really what we're about as a firm. I will turn it over to our team to give a brief description of the projects that they've been involved in, so you can see a little bit of the history of our firm and why we think we're a good fit for this project. Thank you. I'll turn it over to Jason. He'll talk a little bit about this.
Hi, my name is Jason Roberts. I'm a design principal at Anchor Moyson. I'm really proud to talk about a project here. It's actually right across the bay from you guys in San Leandro. We were asked by Bridge Housing to take a look at what used to be a parking lot just across from the BART station there. I think there was close to 400 parking spaces there. They asked us to take a look at what we could do with that, how we could transform that, and what I'm very proud of, we took what was a parking lot people tended to walk by. BART station sort of stood alone and created a project where all of that parking went underground, and we're able to create 115 apartments for families, and we're about to finish 85 apartments for seniors in the second phase. Another thing about this project, this is the courtyard for the families on the backside. It was our first modular project. We actually collaborated with our friends here too, so we appreciate that on this project. But we've gone through a process with that. It's an interesting process for us because the project was not started as a modular project, and we adjusted because it actually made sense to do it from a cost standpoint, and it took a while to understand that. And so we, being in the business of creating homes and affordable, are always looking for things, innovative or not, that get us to where we create really great homes for people. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail. These are some of the diagrams that we shared in our first interview talking about these two. It's two-phase project, but things that we learned and understand about module projects. And I think that's my last slide on that. I'm going to turn it over to Ferdinand to talk a little, or are you next? Yep. Yeah. But I want to say that I think, the mission about creating communities, I think if you go over there now, 5 years ago, this wasn't a community, and right now you have a really interesting connection. It connects the BART station to downtown, and it really feels great as an architect, and I can see what you guys could potentially do with a little move connecting a school and a community a little bit. It's probably already connected a bit, but I think it's an amazing thing that you can accomplish with that.
Hi, I'm Ferdinand Ramirez. I'll be the job captain for this project, as Travis mentioned. This project is 490 South Van Ness in San Francisco. It's also an affordable housing project that we're working with Bridge Housing, Mission Housing, and the City of San Francisco. It's currently under construction with 81 units. There's a huge community aspect to this building. It is the first fully affordable housing project in the Mission to break ground in over 10 years. So that's really exciting for the community, and we're really excited to have that opportunity to provide workforce housing for the Jefferson Elementary School District. So there's a little bit of community room there. I'll turn it over to Chris to talk about a project that just finished construction.
Hey, my name's Chris Gebhardt. I'm a project manager with Anchor Moisten. This is a job we just finished last summer in the Excelsior neighborhood of San Francisco, right down in the south, very comparable in size to what we're talking about here. This one has 61 units. And also a community that really hadn't seen a lot of development. So it was a great opportunity for us to bring new people, new investment, and to the community, while also remaining sensitive to the scale and making sure that we could design a building that really contributed and didn't overwhelm or, change the community too much that we were coming into. And turn it over.
We staged this so we could jump up and down a lot. I think we thought we were kind of sit at a table, maybe. But just quickly, this is Macarthur Station. This is recent. This is almost complete. We brought this one up. This is a project that we started doing modular and switch gears based on lots of things. There's getting the right team and the right group working can be adjusted at times. And Macarthur Station is a large, much more urban project than you guys are looking at, but wanted to say how modular is something that the timing is right and the team is right to do it. And this one ended up being a light gauge steel building, if you understand construction. And a kind of different community space. People come off the BART there. It's one of the busiest BART stations in the region, and really trying to connect people to these apartments and the places they could go on the ground level. I don't know if you've been there in the past. I think when this opens, it'll be quite transformative also. And then we'll jump back to the third one.
We added two more projects here at the end that weren't in the original presentation because we felt they were appropriate scale-wise. Fertilin led the design on this, the detailing of the exterior. This is a condominium project, so we know it's not comparable in that sense, but we think that the quality level, the level of design, the technical requirements of a project like this are very similar, regardless if it's market rate or affordable right. The roof needs to work, it needs to be watertight, et cetera, et cetera. And Fertilin, having detailed this project, we're very excited to have her on this project for that reason. This is a project that was completed a while back in the city of San Francisco. I think it's 34 units, we said. The reason we included again is to show scale, proportion, show a little bit of design, and it's just another range of work. I'll wrap it up very quickly by talking about our design process. I can guarantee you our design process is not nearly this clean. If we were to really diagram it, it would be a total disaster of lines going all over the place because the design process is, excuse me, as you guys know, it's iterative and it involves a lot of learning. And I think that for us, we approach projects from the standpoint of this is your project, this is the community's project. We are not architects with a capital A who came here with a preconceived notion of what this building is going to look like or how it's going to be published and things like that. Our number one priority is to listen and learn. And we want to learn what your core requirements are, what your core needs are, so that we understand what the project requirements really are from a programmatic standpoint, from a technical standpoint. There's so many issues that are involved in design that for us it's really important to engage the group to understand what they value so that we can understand what the values of the project really are. So with that, I'll just say again, thank you for sponsoring and this project, and I'll just piggyback on something that Jason said. The other architecture team here is eminently qualified to do this project as well. We have delivered modular projects with their collaboration, and so I just say you're in good hands either way, and we thank you for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So, how much do you take into account the surrounding architecture where you're going to build?
So it's a great question. Context is tremendously important, right? Buildings you don't design a building in one city and then just say, okay, well, we'll just plop it over here. It just doesn't work that way. There's issues of scale, there's issues of style, but most importantly, it's connectivity. And, housing is not insular. Housing wants to be a part of the community. Daly City and the location of this site is decidedly more open than, say, downtown San Francisco or some other areas where we do some of our infill projects that you've seen. So we're not going to take an infill project approach and say, hey, let's do that here, right? You've seen some compact projects that we've shown. The site, there's context from a social standpoint, there's context from an aesthetic standpoint. I think that all of it needs to be considered. I realize that's a little bit vague, right? We're going to consider everything. Well, but that's kind of the challenge of architecture, is it's not just a building, but the building has to work for where it sits in for a lot of reasons. There's economics, there's aesthetics, et cetera. So I think that the word context is vast, and for us, we approach it similar to what I've described, which is we try and consider all of those things when we develop our projects.
Okay.
I have a few questions, sorry. The Excelsior project, was that modular? Is that a modular project?
No, the Excelsior project was not.
It's not,
No, it's a
okay.
wood frame project over a concrete podium.
Okay, and where are your modulars
So
made?
the modular projects that we've delivered are the two in San Leandro, the Marea Alta and the Vereda. Those are the ones with bridge housing.
I mean, where are they actually manufactured?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you. In Idaho, by Guerdon. They're the ones who did those modules, yes.
Okay, and last one, sorry. Since San Leandro was your first mod project, what were some of did you have any ahas?
Yes,
with that?
a lot of them. There's a story that we didn't plan on telling you, but I'll relay this story to you.
Okay.
I was sitting in the airport with the project manager, Rob Lecker, who's not here, and we coincidentally ran into each other at the airport, and he started telling me this litany of problems. They got wet, they sat out in the rain, schedule issues, all sorts of, a list of issues. And I said, so what are you going to do for phase 2? And he said, we're going to do it again. And he said everything that went wrong is correctable, and we learned from it. And it was the architect, the design team, the delivery team, the contractor. It's not ideal to learn on the job when it comes to something like this, but this has also not been on the market. It's not prevalent in the market so much that we've been able to troubleshoot these things over the years. So there are challenges. For us, phase 2 went so much smoother. Jason's diagram, I won't get too far into this, but let me just show Jason's diagram very quick. On the left is the first phase. On the right is the second phase. The most important lesson learned was, if you're going to go modular, design it early. You can always change to a stick frame, conventional frame later and still build the same project. But if you go the other way and you don't design to modular constraints and you decide later on in the process, then that's the time consuming, that's the real painful design challenges when people say, I love the design we have, but now we have to reevaluate a lot of things. I don't want to say everything. But so all those colors on the left are showing you all the different modules. On the right, the building is much more organized and a lot less modules were needed to be produced. Any other questions?
I want us to get up and dance.
Well, thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
I've lived in a lot of those. Well, two of those.
So the next presentation is from Lonely Architecture.
All right, you ready?
Yep.
We're ready. By the way, thank you so much. We really have enjoyed working with these guys. They're good people. So we just got to set that aside for now. It's steel cage deathmatch, right? So here we go. Yeah, exactly. Survivor. Any show that you want, we're gonna. But no. And I think that the lessons learned are very valuable, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. But first. We're going to talk, this is more of an outline of the presentation. I won't go through it too much. We're going to talk about how we distinguish ourselves in the field, especially when it comes to modular architecture. We're going to show you the design team that's assigned to the project, 3 of whom are here and 3 of whom are not. We're going to go through the design process, especially as relates to whether you do modular or not, because this is an exercise we've been through many times. Do I do modular? Do I do modular? No? Then fine, we'll do stick-built. We changed our mind again. We're going to go back. We can help you through that process because it can be daunting. And then we'll show you some of the projects we've already done. So how do we distinguish ourselves? I'm going to talk a little bit about our philosophy as a firm. And the big picture is our understanding of multifamily housing is immense. We do all kinds of multifamily housing, not just affordable. We do supportive housing. This is for people who are moving off of the street. We do workforce housing. I'll show you a couple projects later that are for people who, under normal circumstances, in a normal market, would just have access to housing, but they don't. That's the Bay Area. Low income, market rate, student housing. These micro units, we've done all of these types, and we bring that experience to every project that we do. As far as partnerships, key partnerships, one of the things that we've found is you've got to find the right people who understand if you're doing modular, how do you do modular projects? What are the nuances? What are the things you need to know in advance before you get started? And fortunately, over time, we've developed a team that can switch hit. They can hit modular or they can switch and hit site built. And so the great thing is our team's prepared to go whichever way you need to go. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the questions that need to be answered in order for you to get there. In terms of the talent and innovation, we are actually one of the first firms to do modular in the Bay Area. First completed modular project was in 2014 in San Francisco. And my colleague Nick, who will talk more extensively later, has been basically doing modular projects since then. As I spoke earlier, we have the many different types of housing configurations, and we're fascinated by what you're proposing here because it's really unheard of that the community is reacting in such a way to what amounts to a crisis for people that are extremely important to the community. I have a daughter who's in the 7th grade, and so I know what kind of relationship she has with her teachers and how important it is for teachers to have a firm standing. We've used technology from the beginning of the practice, so our basis of understanding in how do you complete projects efficiently and quickly is based on that, the 16 years that we've been in practice. And so we'll bring all of that knowledge to bear in our dialogue with you. And then I'm not going to go into the details about the decision-making and the navigation. Nick is really experienced at that, so he's going to talk about it. Take me off the hook there. We've really helped a lot of clients go through precisely the process that you're going to be going through, and so we're interested in helping you with that. And then in terms of values, all I can say is that we're a very community-oriented firm. In fact, one of our colleagues today was giving a presentation on one of our favorite projects, which is a West Oakland grocery store in what has amounted to a food desert for 40 years. There's been no grocery. And so it's a community-based market. It's very much in our wheelhouse. We love those kinds of projects that are in support of the mission of the community. We understand the issues that we're facing in the Bay Area. We're Bay Area-based. Our office is in Oakland. We have 40 people there. And we have dealt with a lot of local concerns. We've helped our clients resolve those kinds of concerns on a local basis through communication and through advocacy. And so, of course, we will bring all those things to this project for you. So I'm going to talk a little bit longer and then I'm going to get out of the way. The team, as you can see, my name is Mark Donahue. I'm the design director of Lowney Architecture. And my responsibility is really to make sure that every project we do has a certain level of quality, a high level of quality. Lisa Myshak, our senior project manager, she will be the primary conduit for you, Lisa. And I've got to say, I've been in practice now for 31 years, and this is one of the finest project managers I've ever worked with. I'm not kidding. She's never heard this before, but she's good. And then Nick Gomez is really our resident expert in modular. If you have any questions about modular, he's your man. He can answer all of them. In addition to that, we have a team back home that didn't come tonight. They all have early bedtimes. Andrew Appleton is somebody that Lisa has known from a previous firm, and they work hand in hand. It's been really fun watching them work, very effective and very efficient. Elizabeth Mackay, who would be our job captain, actually was a student of mine when I taught at university, and so that is a relationship I had for a while. It was great when you teach, you can like cherry pick all the best students to bring into your office. So we got the best ones. And one other aspect of our practice that's unique is that we have a landscape architecture department. Jennifer Ivanovich is our landscape architect, and she has a team. What it allows us to do is to work hand in glove when we're doing the design, so that the site is not something that comes after. It's part of what we do when developing the project. All right, so on that note, I'm going to hand it over to Nick, who's going to tell you a little bit about our partnerships.
So as Mark mentioned, we put together a strong team that can take the project through, whether it's site-built or factory-built. And it's really important to have engineers that understand that process. And so we've worked with DCI and FART engineers on multiple projects. And as AM has pointed out, several of those projects have gone site-built that were intended to be modular for various reasons. We also have a strong working relationship with modular factories, and we provide services to them. We did the first project with Factory S off their production line, so when they got started. We also helped them do their shop drawings, which is something that we've helped Gurdon do recently. And one of the other notable things up here is we did the first project in the United States with CMC Modular, and I'll show you that project later. CMC Modular is located in China, so the project was built in China, put on a barge, and shipped over here. And we're talking to Rad Urban about developing a project in San Jose. So we know all the factories, we work with them, we constantly get calls from them, and we've helped them with their production. So modular, we don't push modular, but we like to make it an option, and we like to start there and make a building that could be modular possible. And why is that? And if you look at the bottom of the blue rectangles, that's your conventional construction process, right? You do your design, your permitting, your foundation, and then you build your superstructure. The beauty of modular is that you could actually build your superstructure while your site work is being done. And that's sort of the overlap in the yellow. And then so what you should receive if you have an experienced contractor, an experienced A&E team, is you should get some time saving. And everyone likes to say 30 to 40%, so we'll say it again. And on the bottom is the process. So Lani Architecture, as AM mentioned, we've collaborated with them. So we sometimes do the architect of record for just the factory portion, which is the top orange bar. So what happens with factory-built housing is there's going to be two permitting processes. So everything that is built on site will receive a permit at the local municipality. And the great thing is you could do everything that's built in the factory gets permitted by the state. And the state is very easy to get through permitting. I've gotten a 150 unit project permitted in 30 days. So it's pretty quick. And so the bottom diagram is just kind of showing that overlap with the two permitting processes. It's a dual permitting, we'll have dual sets. And as AM mentioned, we've collaborated with them. So there's a lot of collaboration that happens through the process of developing those contract documents. So on the left is a project that was intended to be site-built, and you can see things don't line up across corridors. There's a lot of ins and outs and jogs. What we like to do is just be very disciplined about designing a project that is modular possible, to give you the option of going either way. And we've found out through the course of it that it actually makes a very efficient building in that process. And on the right is just an example of what a module is. A module isn't just a unit. A module, if laid out efficiently, you want to build the biggest floor plate as possible that can ship from the factory. So that would mean a part of a unit, a corridor, and part of a another unit that would be across the corridor. So laying out double loaded corridors is kind of the most efficient use of factory built housing.
All right, and with that, Nick, I guess you're going to talk about some of our past experience.
If I get the clicker to work. Okay. I'm still up here. All right. So as mentioned earlier, we did a project that was built in China with CIMC Modular. So as part of that process, we had to help develop their standards for getting permitted through the state of California. So getting all their compliance with our building code. And everything you see there, it was built in the factory except for the concrete walls on the left bottom corner. That was and the foundation. So that open stair on the right was actually built as part of a factory module and shipped from China on a barge. It is student housing privately developed student housing for UC Berkeley, developed with panoramic interest. The floor plan is all studios, which means it's very efficient use of space. If you see in the left-hand corner.
We have a floor plan, don't we?
Yeah, but in the left-hand corner, in order to maximize space, we had a Murphy bed designed. The beauty of doing a project built in China was that Murphy bed was probably, $1,500 here. And I think we probably got them for like $300 as a knockoff. The factory said we could build it for you. So they basically took the drawings and made it. So the modules came shipped, not with the TV, but with the Murphy bed and the casework. This is a typical floor plan. Again, we want to line things up across the corridor. Stairs and elevators can become part of the modules. They just have to get coordinated with all the site work. This was the first project we did with Rick Holliday and Larry Pace of Canon Constructors. Those are the reason why I mentioned them. They are the founders of Factory OS. So after doing this project with them, 136 units in San Francisco, they decided, why should we pay someone else to build our projects? Let's just open up a factory and start building them ourselves. So again, as I mentioned, there were some things that happen when you do factory built housing, lessons learned. We had some extra wide units in this project that required CHP escort. Don't do that. Make sure they're under the width that would require an escort. But because of those extra wide units, we couldn't actually make the turn into this alley. So what you're not seeing here is that this building is behind another building. So the crane that was hoisting the modules actually had to pick up the back of the truck, and the truck had it slowly inch. And as they slowly rotated the back of the truck so they could get the truck to back into the alley. But the interesting to note here is the time savings. The project on the right that you barely see behind that palm tree is a senior housing project, affordable housing project. It started 6 months before we broke ground, and we finished and occupied building 6 months before they finished. So definite time savings. One of the things about factory built housing, people always say they're kind of square, and you got to kind of keep things square-ish. But you do have sites that may have odd geometry. Part of the way we resolved it on this project was to angle we had two bars. We angled one across the courtyard so that we could kind of respect the geometry of the property line. But what it created was sort of this nice internal courtyard that was kind of in the view here. All right, I think I'm done.
All right, now it's my turn. Okay. So this is a project in Campbell. It's a modular project, and in response to your question about site context, this is an insertion in an existing complex of like 240 units that was built in the 1970s. It's kind of a mission style influence. And so the idea was that we have to respect that. So we're doing more of a contemporary mission style with modular and adding some density. So this is like something that we're seeing, a new trend where, we have to take some suburban areas and add more housing. And so how else can we do that in something that's typically like 2 stories? So that's that project. It's market rate housing. This is the site-built project, and this is in Oakland. It's more of an urban setting, so we responded to the design guidelines set out by Oakland for the corridor that they're trying to create, and so this is very urban looking. It's micro units, so it's another exploration of the type of, we're so interested in the different types of way people can live in housing, and so this is like small little units. You don't even have a cooktop, and there's shared kitchens on every floor, so it's just another way that people can live. Oh, one too fast. Yeah. This is a supportive housing project that we're working on with Mid-Santa Cruz. So it'll be for formerly homeless people. And it is modular as well. This is a different context as well, where it's kind of suburban, but also going up a hill. And it has the advantage of these great views to the ocean. So it was really important to us that we capture those views and have people enjoy those. We also worked with them and their standards to figure out what they want for community spaces, maintenance, case manager offices, and so forth. So this is the plan that shows the modular with all of the units facing the nice view there. I'll hand it back to Mark to close it up.
All right, so this will be the last project we show you tonight. This is a project that we're currently working on in Truckee, and this is artist housing. And so that represents a workforce in Truckee that can't really afford the market rate. And so what's interesting about this is that I think if I were to show you this image and have you guess what kind of construction it was, you probably would not guess modular. We're working hand in hand with Factory OS and with Holiday Development to deliver a project that fits in Truckee. And for those of you who've been there, it's got that mountain mining town aesthetic. At the same time, giving them the economy that makes it possible to charge rents that people in this town can afford, artists in the town. And again, you see the organization, it's very clear across the halls. You can see how the modules lay out. That's a process that we can help guide you through. So that's the end of our presentation. We'd love to answer any questions that you have.
Were any of those, did you have any buildings that had units that were not studios or one bedroom? Do you have 2, 3 bedrooms?
Yeah, so the 5800 3rd Street was actually a mix of studios, junior 1 bedrooms, and 2 bedrooms.
Show that one again.
And most of what we do is not studio projects. It just happens to be some of the ones we've been doing lately with like the supportive housing. That one. Yeah. So it's a mix of 2s, junior 1 bedrooms, 1 bedrooms. So it's just, you get to that density by adding more modules to sort of get there. And when you're doing, a lot of our affordable housing developers need to hit that mix for TCAC, like 25% 2s and 3s. So it's just strategically locating the ones that require more bedroom access on the corners so that they don't take up so much space in the middle of the building.
Yeah, the Franciscan project I showed in Campbell also has 2 bedroom units and 1 bedrooms.
All right. And then that one in Campbell, it's just the middle part is what you put in?
Yes, the blue.
All right.
With an amenity building and a new pool
And
and
how
a
long?
garage.
How long had the other neighborhood been there?
Since the 1970s.
Okay.
And so what we're removing is a parking lot and an old pool and a little.
That's all I was trying to figure out, like what came out. Okay.
Yeah, right. And so this is replacing that.
Yeah, it's interesting. The buildings, you can see the adjacent buildings off to the right of the frame. We just show a little snippet of it, but it's quasi-mission style, 70s version of mission style. And so I think this really answers a question you asked earlier about context. We really like to respond to context. Sometimes you're compelled to do it, and so you might as well get on with that, right?
Right. Well, for me, because I've lived in a couple of the neighborhoods that both of you have shown, but Daly City is unique.
It is unique.
And so I think you already mentioned, or one of the firms mentioned that we have open, designs and space. So that was why that question came to my mind.
Sure. In addition to the cultural and physical context, there's all those other things, like where's the prevailing wind from, where, what's the best time of day in October to be out on, the sidewalk. Those are all considerations that we'd like to bring into the process. And then, of course, I think that we would all agree that engaging with the community is an essential part of it, because we can't pretend to know all the things that are important to you. We typically kick off our projects with a visioning session where you get stakeholders in the room, you kind of do like almost a design Rorschach test, and it gets a lot of things out into the open. We've really been very successful in engaging community groups to try to find out what is the thing that's on their mind. What are they thinking about that we can then bring into the project so they feel good about it.
I thought I had another question, but someone else can go.
Okay, so you were talking, You guys were talking about underground parking, but the site we have, I don't think you can do that, can you?
I don't know.
It's the other group.
You know, I think the KTGY study, feasibility study that was part of the package included some underground parking.
Oh, it did?
Yeah, in order to get the parking counts.
Okay.
Would you rather not?
Well, I don't really care as long as it works. All I know is
It's more expensive to do parking underground.
Yeah.
Because any
Well,
way
then-
that you can avoid it, it is way better not to. And
Okay.
there's a lot of very innovative parking out there in terms of automation, machine parking, that we're using in a multitude of residential projects. The footprint of the parking is much smaller, and so really, you don't want to be spending a lot of money housing cars. We get that.
Yep, you're right.
thank you for saving money.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and we were working on a 1,032 unit project in West Oakland that actually had zero parking. at
Zero
one
parking,
time.
yeah.
So
That was a different brand of fish.
Yeah, the Jesse Street project, this one has tuck under parking, so that's another way to do it.
What did you say it has what?
Tuck under parking.
What's
It's just like a carport that's right underneath the building.
Oh, okay.
Kind of the old 60s apartment style.
So it allows you not to have to build like a concrete podium.
If you were to be selected and we do go with the modular plan, which partner would you work with for this project?
Partner as far as factory?
Yes.
Yeah, so the way it works is the factory falls under the contractor. And it's a little bit of a kind of a marriage between the owner too. You know, it's like everyone has to kind of come together on it. So because the contractor has to hire the factory, we sort of leave it up to them. And you do an RFP for factories, and you see who comes in with the best bid. We work with them all, so, you know, we like to kind of, you know, not be the person choosing.
So I have a question for actually both teams. So I know that a lot of the projects you both presented has a mixture of commercial, residential, either private or government. And I was just wondering, would you both be able to sort of mention or talk about some of the challenges you guys have faced in terms of working with government entities in terms of building projects, or have you guys learned anything along the way that you guys have been able to use to sort of kind of improve the planning process for how you build a lot of these kind of projects in general?
Wow, that one has like 6 different levels. So I guess we'll start off and scratch the surface. Every situation is unique. I think that we all agree, and I don't think these guys would disagree with this, that what we're trying to do is find the sort of center of gravity of your project that leads from where we are now to handing over the keys as quickly and as efficiently as possible. And I can speak for our firm to say that we've often undertaken the role of being an advocate on behalf of the client. We could tell you stories about, especially like in Oakland, there are rules that don't make any sense. And so you have to go through a process of convincing people, convincing the stakeholders that it doesn't make sense and we have a better way to do it. And it's a very delicate business because, you know, building officials can be very conservative. Planning officials can have an agenda. And so the first thing that we always think about is how do we engage and start the communication. And then what you may find, and we've done this several times, is that you actually are talking to the different sides of the exact same problem. And as soon as you switch perspectives, everyone agrees. Everyone agrees it's time to start belly dancing. Everyone agrees that actually there is a solution that makes more sense. So I don't want to, you guys should have a chance to.
Sure. I think it's obviously, as you mentioned, a complex issue, right? I think that the advantage that a private developer has is that they can make the decision, right? It could be one person. Sometimes they have large organizations or they have to go to their national office, but we work with a lot of private developers and some of them are very nimble. Government agencies tend to be a little less nimble, and I think that when you have a committee that each member has their own concerns and you have to get the committee to agree to a decision when really there's pros and cons to each of those decisions, that can be a time-consuming, challenging process. So I would say that the developer has that advantage in terms of being able to make the quicker decisions. For us, we try, as I'm sure Lowney does as well, to present information that is digestible, that is understandable, that leads to sort of a logical decision. But sometimes there really is pros and cons, and you may value the time savings, and you may value another aspect of the situation, and so resolving those sometimes can be delicate and time consuming. So at any rate, our experience has been what I just described.
Cool, thank you.
Now you got me curious. What do you see as being potential barriers? Like, who are the entities who would be involved in that question?
I guess my question was because previously I've actually worked in city planning, and so I understand the process in terms of delays, kind of either getting permitting or getting through CEQA, getting projects done on time. So I just kind of understand that there's a lot of barriers and roadblocks that could happen along the way. So just trying to get some more insights in terms of your approach and perspectives in terms of how best to sort of kind of either address them head on, or if they're a way that you guys have done in terms of like learn from the past as we sort of kind of improve on what you guys do for the future.
Yeah, I think both of our firms have dealt with those issues, and it's really just about keeping your nose to the grindstone, keeping a friendly attitude and not getting adversarial, and that, just being persistent.
You also mentioned early, getting in early, right? So if you can make some basic decisions about the project and get in early to some of those processes, then you have an advantage, right?
And I think from the project management side, if we can help say, here, we need certain decisions by certain dates so that we stay on schedule, that's kind of our role, is to help you make decisions in a timely manner so that, we're just moving the whole process forward.
That was actually one of my questions. What is the job captain's job?
They cannot get a hat.
It's to drive the drawing ship. So job captain in our firm is somebody who's in charge of the drawing set. And so their responsibility is to make sure all the issues are made on time, that all the sheets that are required are on time, that all the notations and everything is in order. And of course, it's usually a more junior person than the project manager. And we also have senior technical people that are keeping an eye on them. But they're really the wheels of the operation, especially when we get past a certain stage. Usually, in our firm at least, the job captain role doesn't really kick in into the construction documents.
Very similar, except a little bit different in terms of our process. Our project manager and our job captain really work hand in hand, and the roles are sometimes hard to distinguish because they're both going to be working with the decision making. They're both going to be working with the documents. But the job captain's role at the end of the day is for the documentation to be complete and to be coordinated with the other consultants. So the project manager has a broader view of the schedule and the relationship with the ownership team. And our job captain really has a lot of relationship, a little bit more in deep with the consultants and the consultant team and the set of documents.
Any other questions, comments, discussion?
Well, I know we've had a few discussions, and I kind of now don't remember where we were as far as modular or, Superintendent
We haven't made that decision. So part of what we've learned in the last few months is that it's best to work with our architects to help us make that decision. And so part of the reason these two were selected was because we felt like they had the capacity to help guide us through that decision-making process.
All right. So that being said, I've heard all the positive reasons why modular is a good way to go.
Yes.
Why would someone not go modular? And then at the same time, I didn't really understand why someone would start, not modular and switch to modular besides just the saving time. Is there any other reason?
Yeah, well, I can give you a better one. When people start site built and then they call us and say, can you make this a modular project? We do that quite a bit. But why would someone switch? There's various reasons. We did studies for some people that want to do townhomes, and they roll out townhomes all over like suburban parts of like the Outer Bay areas, Tracy, Stockton. We designed several modular buildings for them. They took it to a contractor, and because labor is cheaper out in that area, it was actually cheaper for them to site build it than it was to go modular.
I think the construction costs are so outrageous and the escalation is really out of control. So you get an estimate in November and then you come back in February, March, and you see escalation that's sizable, and that's really frustrating. Okay. And so the promise of modular starts to really creep into people's heads. And as we all agree here, the earlier you make that decision, or at least if you start designing to modular, then you have a greater flexibility. Why would someone not consider modular? It's not that prevalent in the market. There are challenges. It's not a fix-all that's going to solve, every issue. It has its challenges, and it requires a lot of attention to things that perhaps you haven't experienced. So if our folks have been designing for 10 years a certain way, and then you have to get them to sort of really understand that there's a lot of technical requirements that you need to consider. So I think that there's a lot of reasons to go either way. It's a complex issue. I think that why would someone start stick frame and then make that decision that we know is a tough one? It's the rise in construction costs. Okay. And it's that promise of some savings.
I want to add one thing too. Another reason why people switch back to stick built is that financial structure. When you're ordering modules, it's like ordering from Amazon. You have to put in your order and you have to pay for it before, and then they'll ship you the product. In site construction, you can pay for the work that's been done as it gets done. So if your financing structure doesn't allow you this big bolus of money earlier in the process, it can be very challenging.
Absolutely.
And it is a different process for the client, because there's a lot of upfront decision making that has to happen. So a lot of our like affordable housing developers that we work with, they're used to kind of like making decisions like on the back end, like during CA, let's change the colors, let's revise the casework. It's like no, it's been decided earlier, because the factory has to procure things. So we call it design freeze.
Okay. That project Macarthur Station that we showed you, we switched. We set a certain pace. We were aligned with the factory. Things were going really well. Some decision-making changed. It was regulatory and ownership and things like that. It started to slow us down, and then we were not able to sort of simply slide ourselves into a factory at a slot, and that sort of put us off course. And then by the time we got back to that, it actually, I think modular, you really kind of want to go fast. Like if you really want to take advantage of it, you want a project that wants to get built fairly fast. I think there's other reasons too, but and my gut says if you don't need to go fast, it's not as easy to figure out why to do it financially.
Okay, that was very helpful. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We really appreciate you having us here tonight, and we've really enjoyed talking to you, and we will see you again.
So, Mr. Vidales, would you advise us in terms of what are the next steps necessary for?
So the board did indicate that you wanted to make the selection, and so you have that opportunity tonight to make that final selection. You can discuss amongst yourselves, make a motion, second it, vote. As you've heard, both firms are qualified. Both firms have the capacity to assist us. I think what you're looking for is, which firm might have the best match for our district, for our community, as the community's filter for projects. So that's what we need you to utilize.
Should we leave?
No. This is a public meeting. We can't ask you to leave. If you want to leave, you may. You can watch us on YouTube, and you can watch it that way.
It's really hard because I think both groups are great.
Is there a possibility for another collabo between the two firms?
Another what?
Another collaboration.
I think we have to get married to one person, and then they can decide if they need to bring somebody else.
Yeah. I already knew it. I already knew it.
So what do we use to make a decision?
Well, I would suggest that you just utilize your own filter for the community. Like, which group do you think might work best with our community? They will be holding some community forums. They will be working with our staff. They'll be working with lots of different groups. You saw some examples of the architecture that they can produce. I think at this point, it's more like a stylistic, artistic decision. The technical decision was made to bring them both to you. So use your filter as community representatives. You can, I'll give you a third option. You can choose to punt and have staff make the decision, and we will meet tomorrow morning and make a decision and inform them. That's a third option if you cannot get to a place where you can make that decision.
Okay, so you've got guys have been talking with them too, and so.
We just interviewed them a couple of weeks ago. We haven't spoken to them since that date, and it was just presentations and some questions and answers, and that's how they were selected to come here tonight.
So looking at all this stuff, I mean, which ones are the ones that, I mean, which are the ones we're going to be doing? Because there's a lot of things that it's not going to be what we want, right? Mm-hmm. So if what we want is which seems to be closest to meeting our needs.
It's not choosing through a catalog. I want this. It's more like which group is going to engage in the design process that fits us.
Yeah,
so we haven't really gone to that place. We just said, okay, these were the two that we want to bring to the board. Now, if you want us to make a recommendation, we can, and bring that a single recommendation to you, but I heard at some point that you wanted to make that decision, so I wanted to respect that for you.
Well, I think that, first of all, we have one board member that's not here.
That's right.
And you're offering us more time for you to vet a little bit more, so.
No, we would make the decision tomorrow morning after we discussed, yeah. If you let us make it, we would make it tomorrow morning.
Can you tell me how you're going to make it?
We haven't even discussed that because that was going to be your decision. Okay. So I didn't even go to that place. But we would enter into that conversation tomorrow morning, taking into account all the information that we've received and making a selection.
I had a question, I'm sorry, for the first team that went up. So they talked about doing like envisioning sessions with stakeholders and things like that. Do you guys have that as part of the model?
Yeah, so pretty much in the Bay Area, every project has community involvement. Some neighborhoods are more active than others, but we rarely have a project that doesn't have a community aspect. So all of our lead senior designers are used to having community meetings. I think the visioning session is usually a great way to approach the neighborhood. The single most important thing that we find that communities want to know is that they're being heard. They know that just because they have a need or a desire, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to get involved. It's going to get incorporated into the project. But when developers act dismissive, or they hold a meeting that wasn't advertised, that creates mistrust. And so really, I think that what they're alluding to is at the very beginning, you want to create a sense of trust with the community and let them know that you are going to hear their concerns. And so we have a lot of experience with that in a lot of our projects.
Yeah.
So I have a request. So I know that there's three approaches toward making an action. Would we be able to give each team 2 minutes? Give me a closing argument about why we should pick you over the other team.
I like that.
Just to sort of kind of summarize. Yeah. You guys presented for 20, 25 minutes. If there's a way to sort of kind of concisely present that, just as a way to sort of help us make a better decision, if that's possible.
Mr. Valenti will set the 2-minute timer. So who went first last time? Ankrum. So we'll have Lowney go first, and then Ankrum will go second. Okay, ready, go.
Well, obviously, I think that you've seen that we're both very collaborative firms. And the truth is on the basis of personality and getting along with each other, we've had great experience with these guys. And I'm glad that it's a tough decision for you. It should be tough because we're both very highly qualified. If I were to leave that aside for a moment and talk about why we think that we have the jump on these guys, is that our relationship with the factories is much more intimate. And the fact Ken Lowney, our founder, is on the board of Factory OS. We are basically working every day to understand how they're improving the technology and how to deploy it. So the advantage there is if you do decide that modular is right for you, and a project like this is actually one of the types of projects that's best suited for it. You can make units for much less a door if you play the process right. Then we're really the ones who are closest to the potential ways you could do it in a way that's going to be meaningful to you. I think when it comes to the design side, when it comes to the community outreach, it's pretty tough to distinguish between us, and I think that's really the conundrum that you're hanging on. Aesthetically, you know, it's a good balance in terms of the personalities of the people you're talking to tonight. These are good guys. I'm not going to, you know, backstab them, but if there was one quality I would say that we can bring to the party, that we're probably the most qualified architect in the Bay Area for that, is the modular aspect. Do I have time left over? I'm going to cede that to the competition.
So,
What's he doing?
Okay. So he's absolutely correct. They do have a vast modular experience, and we respect them tremendously as an architecture firm. I think that we distinguish ourselves by how we approach projects, and our approach is not our value system. Our approach is what the community needs, what this project needs to be. So we want to learn from your district and your constituents, your stakeholders, what it is that you envision this project to be. You've clearly studied the site, you commissioned a feasibility study, you have opinions. Those are important to us. We could come in here as sort of like as an academic exercise and provide you some fantastic looking architecture, and it serves nobody's needs. So our approach is to learn what your needs are. Our architecture has no signature design style. We don't have a signature approach. And that's because each project has its own requirements. And so we approach each project almost like a blank slate from the standpoint of what it's ultimately going to become. How we're able to do that is with the experience. We have a team that has a tremendous amount of experience, and we're able to do projects of so many different scales, whether they're high rises or you know, small projects, 4 units. And so we find that the ability to adapt our design skills to the requirements of each particular project, that's the value that we bring when we're working with new folks and with new teams. So that's what I would say. Thank you.
Did that make it easier?
It's like this.
So which, I believe it was Lowney, you said that you were involved with the first modular project in...
That's right, the Harriet Street project in San Francisco. Our founder, Ken Lowney, was the architect of record for that. So, I mean, the point of that was that we've been doing this for a while. It's sort of reiterating what we did during the lightning round, which is when it comes to modular, we, you know, we have the drop on pretty much everyone around.
So that, I'm going to just quote one of my mentors who says, the original is always best. You know, so... I mean, if we have to have some type of criterion to make a distinction, that would be, you know, if we decide to go modular, that's what I have to add to the deliberation.
I was going to add, but we haven't decided on modular or conventional, is that correct?
We haven't, and as was mentioned, both firms have experience in both.
I very much appreciate this. This is nice. I'm a visual person.
Yeah.
You guys did put in a lot of effort for that. So I just wanted to say thank you and acknowledge that.
Happy to do that.
So, does anyone want to?
I mean, the only other thing I'll add is that, you know, I've lived in the Excelsior, so that one kind of caught my eye, and I saw that it was different than all those other designs. And also, you know, I've lived near Macarthur BART in Oakland, and that one actually I was amazed to see. I actually want to go and see it in person because I know I've got off that BART, you know, many times, and that that's an interesting area. But so it looks like, kind of from what I could tell, it looks a little more like Fruitvale area now. I don't know if that's a good comparison. It also reminded me of the like 13th Street downtown Oakland area too. So that did catch my eye as well.
Appreciate that. It's going to be exciting to see what happens when
It's 3 buildings. It's still under construction, but the 3 buildings really allow for some interesting placemaking, allowing the public to still filter through. It's really part of the project.
That's it.
Any more feedback, comments, questions, decisions?
Well,
Well, I know another thing you had mentioned previously was to sort of push this off until later on we'd have more time to discuss. Would that be an option?
It's always an option, but I would just hesitate for you to take that easy route out. I think you need to make a decision. We can always kick it down the road, but you know, every week we add to this is every week that we add to the project. And we met with these guys at the beginning of February. If we could have made a decision then, we could have been into the design process by now. We brought it to you, so I would highly encourage you to make a selection today.
okay. So you're in the past. In the past, this would have been a decision made by the superintendent and cabinet. So I move that we just let them make the decision in the morning. No, we.
It varies. It varies. Sometimes superintendent and cabinet will come with a recommendation to the board.
Yeah.
The board, at some point about a year ago, made the request that the board be involved in the selection of the architect. So.
Right. So I feel like we're involved right now. And yeah, so I don't want to go weeks, you know, with this, and we're not being decisive. So I move that we let you make the decision in the morning. That we allow the superintendent and cabinet to make the decision, or their recommendation, I could put it that way, to make their recommendation, but that we, you know, either approve or not approve of their recommendation by the next board meeting.
The contract.
Well, it's just a contract. Yeah, we can discuss. Yeah. Did you have any?
So what that would look like would be we would make the decision and we would start to engage in conversation with the firm selected. We'd come up with a contract and then it would come forth to the board to approve the contract to work with a recommended architecture firm, which we would have to do anyway. If the board makes a selection, we'd need to go and continue and begin conversations with the firm to develop a contract, and then it would come to you for your approval. So basically the question is, who do you want us to start having a conversation with, or do you want us to make that decision?
That's making our decision.
Yeah.
So we never make the decision now. So that they can go start talking about it. How confident do you guys feel about this?
I mean,
So we have one motion. So did that motion die, or is there a possible second? Or you're discussing if there's going to be a second to that. Okay.
This is a big decision to make.
It is. Yeah.
And we don't really know anything other than this stuff here.
That's my point.
Yeah, I agree. But at the same time, what would it take to make us decide?
did you want to say something?
We're not going to know it tonight. We're not We don't have the expertise.
So what do we need?
I don't think there's a bad decision here, so don't feel bad about that.
I was gonna say, I agree too. Like I remember when I was in college, I was studying with BARD. They were planning that Macarthur Station project, and a couple of these kind of projects in the SOMA that both of your teams have worked on. I remember I was actually studying those in college. So, and I feel like even after this presentation and after like an hour of questioning and presentations and graphics and imagery, I still feel that both teams are pretty qualified. I mean, I can't see any like major faults unless I'm missing something. But, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the issue is they both look good.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard to decide, but.
Question for you guys. How busy are you guys? How many projects do you have?
That's a good question.
Wait, what did you say?
How busy are you?
Oh,
I'm going
Here
to
we
answer
go.
this because this is the reality is we're very busy. The market is very active, but we're not so busy that we wouldn't place a lot of importance on this project. I mean, the reason we responded, as I said at the top, is this district sponsoring this project is a unique model. And that's what we're excited about. We're excited about a different approach. We work with market rate developers, private developers all the time. This is something that needs to be successful. We want to partner with you in making it successful. We think that alternative means of providing housing in the Bay Area is essential, absolutely. Whether it's financing, whether it's, and I know they would agree. So that's what we're excited about.
I agree.
It's
true. I agree.
It's a very active market.
But the truth is, the sentiment is. I mean, the reason we're here is exactly that sentiment. You're doing something special. We love to work on these kind of special projects that serve the community. It's just part of what's bread in the bone for us. And it's not like we're going to ignore our other clients, but we have put together a team that we know is capable of handling it. I know these guys have too. I know we're making it easier for you not to decide, but that's the truth of the matter is that we wouldn't have applied if we didn't have the capacity to deliver. And I think these guys can say this too, that we do much larger projects and we do smaller projects. So that part of it is not an issue. And I want to mention we did the Macarthur parking garage, so we're in there too.
I did like this one too. This one was nice. The from China, yeah, I like this one too.
No.
So anyhow.
Okay, so
Can I?
so go ahead.
So if we defer to you guys, could we make a suggestion? And
What do you mean?
no, if we defer
What do
the
you mean?
decision to you, like if we throw it back to you, we can make a suggestion on?
You can tell me what you prefer.
Yeah.
You can do that by voting.
Well, I think.
nobody wants to do this. What's going on?
Either you let us make the decision and you vote to approve it, or you express your preferences to each other.
Maybe we'll just leave them.
We'll get back to you guys tomorrow morning, okay?
For the record, we're voluntarily leaving now. We got to press the train.
Yeah.
We can all stay if you guys wanted to make the decision. I think the idea of us leaving is
A
to make
motion.
you guys feel comfortable.
Yeah.
So
A motion is still on the floor.
I was actually going to say there's a motion, and I am okay seconding that motion, actually. So can we get a roll call vote on that?
I'm sorry, what was the,
Mr.
was it
Cook,
the
can you
same
summarize the
motion?
Sorry,
please?
so there's a first and a second to defer the decision on selecting an architect for this project to the superintendent and his executive staff to decide.
Okay, could I just say something?
Thanks.
I like the fact that we should talk about it. And so if you guys want to leave, then we can talk, and we can tell the superintendent, he can tell us what he thinks, and we can make this decision as a team, not just one person do it. Does that sound all right?
Yeah, that sounds
Can we watch it later on?
yes.
Oh, no! Yeah.
You can actually watch it now.
Thank you.
All right, thanks guys.
Okay. I just want to see that we can talk together. How do we feel and get the perspective from the superintendent? So tell us what you think.
As I said, both firms were selected because they'd met many of our expectations and desires and ability to fill our needs. The feel of the two firms, both of them were very warm. I personally preferred Lowney. It just seemed more playful to me. Playful, not, both are happy, but, it's a smaller firm. So that came across as a smaller team, one office versus a larger. Both are good, and they're hearing us right now, so it doesn't matter. But both are good.
We should be able to talk about it and get some good feelings. Because sometimes it's just, they both sounded good, but what is it that puts one sort of above the other that would fit our needs? That's.
I was gonna say, I feel like we haven't decided on conventional or modular, and I feel like if it was a clear module, then it's very clear. But if it's it could be either way. I don't see even comparing the documents we were given, the presentation. I checked the websites before, review their case studies. I still don't even see a clear, sometimes it's clear, decisive in terms of one or the other, but even I don't see it just from, I feel the same way too.
Okay, so let's get your gut out. Get your gut out. I mean, let's leave tonight feeling good about what we're doing. So let's see. Do we all vote with each other or something? There's a motion. Yeah, but let's make sure that's what we want to do.
Well, I told you how I think they're both.
So how do you feel about it? Do you feel that, which group would you pick?
I like them both for various reasons. I like that Lowney has the experience, they have the background, they're more seasoned. And so, and what struck me was the intimacy that they have with the factories as well. I think that repertoire and that type of relationship would benefit us. On the other hand, I do like the others' designs, and I believe in giving people, opportunities. So if they've only done one mod and that's where we're going toward, this gives them the opportunity to do it again and have more experience of this type of experience under their belt. And that's probably the only reason why I'm leaning towards Ankrum, is to be able to give them that opportunity, because they don't have that seasoned experience. And, but at the same time, I do appreciate Lowney's experience with it.
If I could make one comment, this is deja vu to me. I've seen this many times.
And this is Mr. Kramer. He's part of our project management team, and part of the team as well. He works for us. He works for you.
I did 2 presentations to you. I'm dressed a little different. I wasn't on crutches, demonstrating my forgotten ability to ski well. What some districts have done when they'll do they'll have the discussion and then quickly do a straw poll and just a ranking of 1, 2, and just kind of see where you are collectively. And if it's a tie, then of course you haven't moved any further. But you may find that you personally have a choice that's similar to the other board members, just with a simple straw poll of 1, 2, a ranking, and that may be a way to make the decision.
Yeah, since it's just one, we can just say who's your first choice. We know your second choice.
And the other thing is, one good thing is that this is a difficult decision. If it was a clear-cut, obvious choice for you guys, then you might care which direction administration might select. But it sounds like another option is to let administration select and then just bring you a contract I don't think you'll be disappointed in the choice. It doesn't sound like you're going to be disappointed in the choice. So those are two ways that I've seen districts go with this.
Well, I like what you had to say a lot, because I kind of lean towards that about what options we're going to get, and the so this side sounded like they were more deep down. It meant a lot, and this side kind of joked too much for me, too much joking, and that's what kind of threw me off for a while on that. But they are both good, so.
I was going to say, I'm not biased any way or the other, but I feel like a presentation is a presentation, but I feel like I rather trust their, like, how many years of experience on a project. Even, like, if someone may be more happier or sadder or during presentation, I don't think that's, like.
Was it my imagination that I felt that the people on this side really wanted to promote modular? That's all they kind of talked about, whereas the other side didn't. And you made a comment that we hadn't decided for sure that we wanted to.
No, and I think it was, we just asked them to share their experiences with both, and that was a strength of that firm, that they had worked a lot with modular. They'd also worked a lot with conventional. I think they have, what do they have on their thing, 50-50 in their projects?
Yeah.
50% of their projects are modular, 50 are conventional, so.
Okay, just gotta get some comments out here.
So I was going to say, so there is a motion, there's a first and a second. If there's no other comments, I was going to ask for a roll call vote.
And summarize the motion again for.
Yeah, so I'll summarize the motion. There's a first and a second to defer the decision of selecting an architect for this project to the superintendent and his executive team and staff to make a decision that is, in their opinion, the best decision.
Can you tell us now what it's going to be?
No, we would be discussing it tomorrow morning.
I know, why? Why
why?
don't you do it now, then they can all know about it?
Because if I make the decision, I have to sleep on it and think about it and come back
but
tomorrow.
it's not okay for us to sleep on it.
No, I'll make it tomorrow, not in 2 weeks. I'll make it tomorrow.
Oh, I see, because we don't have a meeting.
You don't have another meeting for another 2 weeks, so.
Wanted to go
I get it.
Okay, let's get a roll call.
Okay, so the motion was made by Mr. Ali and seconded by Mr. Koo?
Yes.
Correct? Okay, so Mr. Ali?
Aye.
Mrs. Brizuela?
I was just going to say the motion.
Already did.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Brizuela?
I'm sorry, I was talking to him. Aye.
Ms. Manio? Aye. Mr. Koo?
Aye.
Thank you. I will let you know how I decide, or not how I decide, how our team decides by tomorrow afternoon.
Thank you.
Okay, we're all going to go in tomorrow. No, just kidding. Oh, dear.
Next item is item 9B,
Can you take this from me?
Susan B. Anthony Oversight overnight camping trip. Ms. McCulloch, could you provide an overview of that?
So this is an annual trip that Susan B. Anthony third grade students take, and so because it's an overnight trip, we do need board approval.
Are there any questions or comments about this
Susan
item?
B. Anthony overnight camping trip?
Yeah.
No, I love this kind of stuff. I mean, not to go, I'm not going to go. But
Outdoor ed is important.
It is
and
important.
We support it, and I'm happy that this is an annual event in our district.
So now, I'm going to ask a question. Do we pay for the whole thing, Bernie, for them to all go? Or does it school do it?
No, we don't pay much at all. This is sponsored by the Wilderness School.
Ah, right, okay.
Yes.
They fundraise.
They fundraise for it, and I'm not sure if our students fundraise for it, but it's mostly, I think it's all grant funded or, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Yeah, I believe it.
Sometimes I used to hear that PT or something would pay for the kids that couldn't afford to go.
That's a regular outdoor education.
Oh, it's not the same
Yeah,
thing.
that's the San Mateo County program.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I got it. Okay. So I'll make a motion then. I'll make a motion that we approve the overnight stay request for Susan B. Anthony's grade 3. I don't have to say all the rest of it, for May the 16th and 17th, 2019.
Second?
So there's a first and second to approve the Susan P. Anthony overnight camping trip. All those in favor say aye.
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 And one of our former teachers usually goes with them. It's great.
Next item is item 9D, trip to Washington, D.C. for Benjamin Franklin, Fernando Rivera, and T.R. Paulsita students.
All right.
So this is another annual overnight trip. It's about 4 days. They're all going actually around spring break, but they are not going the same time this year. And T.R. Paulsita is also adding in Jamestown and Williamsburg to their trip. So we need approval for that.
So two different, one is going further, you mean? I mean, one's doing more.
Thomas R. Paulsita is going, to another location as well.
Okay.
Oh.
Exciting. Well, I'll make a motion that we approve the trip to D.C. for Benjamin Franklin, Fernando Rivera, and T.R. Paulsita, with Paulsita going to Jamestown and Williamsburg, Virginia as well.
Second.
First and second to approve the trip to Washington, D.C. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That was unanimous. Next item is item 9E, Low Performing Students Block Grant. The administration recommends governing board approval of the Low Performing Students Block Grant Plan and acceptance of the state grant funds.
So for time's sake, I'm not going to do the little 5-slide presentation, but I handed it to you. The California Department of Education has created this grant that they're actually just giving school districts that have low-performing students, so I'll explain how we qualify. But every district in the state of California that has students that qualify can receive these funds, and it was a pretty quick turnaround. We have to tell them by March 1st, and so we have to get your approval tonight if we're going to accept these funds. It's kind of a why wouldn't we? Not a lot of strings attached, which is really nice, and they're giving us a lot of flexibility with how we would spend it, but it is targeted for students who did not meet standard on the math and the English language arts for CASP. And they based the funding, and they can't be English learners, so the students that were not English learners, socioeconomically disadvantaged, foster youth, or eligible for special ed, so students that did not meet the standards in CASP that do not fall under those categories, that's how they qualified us for funding. They based our factor on the 2016-17 results, and then so they said, okay, at that year you had 207 students that qualified, and so then they're giving us a funding per pupil based on that number. However, that was a couple years ago. A lot of those students have actually graduated out, and so currently we have 124 students that met that criteria, but each year students take the test. And so we are not limited to serving those students, but right now most of those students are in our middle school. And so what we have to do is develop a plan. It's a very simple plan. And so basically our plan is to look at those students that qualify based on the not meeting standard in math or ELA. We're gonna look at this current year, see who doesn't qualify or who qualifies under that criteria, and then we're going to create basically a profile for that student to see, how they're performing in school and look at all the factors and see, well, what is the root cause of their low performance, and having the people closest to the work making these determinations and these kind of individualized plans for these students, and it then could include direct student services. It could include professional development for our teachers and collaboration with leadership team. And so what they'll do is then create a plan for that student, and then we're going to monitor it through our benchmark assessments and things. So basically, the plan you'll see was only, I think, 2 or 3 pages. It's very simple. It just says, what are you planning to do? And we say we're going to plan to look at these students and make a plan, and then also to how we're going to monitor. So in order to accept these funds, we need your approval for our plan, and it's over the next 2 years, so 19-20 and 2021 is when we can spend the funds. We can spend them now too, but we have till June of 2021 to spend these funds, and so we have time to plan and determine what we want to do for the next 2 years for these groups of students. And so we still, it's kind of
still to be determined, the specifics, but we know who to target, who to give supports to, and how we want to look at the profile of the student. So if you would like us to accept these funds, we need your approval tonight, because we have to submit by Friday. You don't have to say anymore.
Well,
I
did want to ask. Oh, you're asking the question, or?
No, go ahead. You go first.
Okay, so, so this, I thought I was confused. So this is for students who are not
correct.
Is this kind of a unique type of? Yes. Can you say something about that?
This is. I think it came from the state looking at our disproportionate student populations that are low performing. Our African American students, our other student groups that are low performing that don't fall into those unduplicated pupil counts that come from the LCFF funds. That we have that targeted funding for those student groups. We also have students that are low performing that don't fit into those categories. So they wanted to give school districts funds to do something for those students that don't receive those extra services.
All right. So this is actually a really good thing, and
That's extra.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
And it has to be targeted towards the students that qualify.
Oh, yeah, actually, that was my other question. So right now, if we get the funding, it's only for those 124.
Currently, but we have flexibility, so we want to wait until we see the results from this year's CASP, and so then we can see which students qualify based on this year.
Okay. Thank you. So I'll make the motion then, if it's all right, because you've been on the roll.
Yeah, it's $409,000.
Yeah,
and change.
Quick, say I just want to say that this is also Ms. Manio and I have been, talking about raising funds and finding other ways to get money. So you have, answered that. You answered that call, right? So I move that we accept the recommendation and approve. Approve the low performing students block grant and acceptance of the state grant funds of $437.
There's a first and a second to approve the low performing students block grant. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That was unanimous. Next item is item 10A. Resolution number 19-02-27, designation of technology expenditures as ongoing major maintenance and repairs. Ms. Kessler.
That sounds good.
Yeah, I
Motion.
gave some information on this before.
Yeah.
And basically, we have once we accept the SFP funds, we also have to put a certain amount each year for 20 years and to maintain projects so that they don't fall apart. And the state did not want something to be done and then it to be abandoned. And when the Ed Code was put in 1996 and 98, technology really wasn't around very much, and nobody could fathom that technology would be such a big ongoing expenditure. So the Ed Code allows, it states all the different things that it can be spent on, and then it also says, and any items designated by the governing board of the school district to be an ongoing and regular maintenance of something. And so it's pretty easy for me. I did this in my last district, and it's pretty easy for me to determine what is an ongoing maintenance expense or repair for technology that would fit into this and which is not. And I can separate those two out, and we would, of course, only charge the ones that fall into this category. Great. And we can do that if we have the resolution.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution number, 1902-27, designation of technology expenditures as ongoing major maintenance and repairs.
Second.
There's a first and second to approve resolution number 19-02-27. Can I get a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Ali?
Aye.
Mrs. Brizuela?
Aye.
Ms. Manio? Mr. Koo?
Aye.
Thank you.
That's unanimous. Next item is item 10. B, Keegan Corporation presentation on District General Obligation Measure U bonds. Representative from Keegan will provide a presentation on the opportunity to issue GO bonds 2018 election Series A to fund upcoming construction and facility improvement projects under Measure U.
Good evening, President Koo, members of the board, Superintendent Vidales, and staff. So on the agenda later this evening is a resolution to approve the issuance of the first installment of Measure U bonds. This presentation will review some of the important factors to consider as we move forward with the issuance. Nick Hewer from Stradling will review the legal documents and will also describe what next steps are taken if the board does move forward with the approval. So just a quick recap on Measure U. This was approved by voters for $30 million at a 67.9% approval rate. That's a very high percentage given that the required limit was 55%. We estimated to voters that our tax rate would be about $11.30 per 100,000 of assessed value. And because bonds are issued in pieces over time, this first issuance would be called Series A and be the first installment of bonds accessed. Now, as far as your assessed valuation goes, this is the taxable property within district boundaries, residential, commercial, industrial. And the assessed valuation currently stands at about $11 billion, which is an 11% increase over the prior years. And you can see that the district, ever since the 2010 decline of 3.8%, assessed valuations have really been on a tear, increasing about 50% over that period. What we're looking at from the San Mateo County AV tracker is a little bit more modest growth of about 4.35% for the next fiscal year. Now, interest rates are volatile, as you can see on the chart to the right, going back about 3 years. Following the presidential election, interest rates spiked, and they've waffled up and down, but we are in pretty much an inflationary environment, so rates have increased a little bit since the lows of 2016. That said, if you were to take a look at the chart on the left, which represents a 50-year history, historically we are still at fairly low interest rates, and if you were issuing bonds, now's the time to do it because it's a lower cost to district taxpayers. Now, anytime you issue bonds, as you'll recall, the district has to get a updated credit rating, and the district is evaluated on 4 major criteria: your local economy, finances, debt, and management. And all 4 of those categories are extremely strong. Moody's has you as a AA1, which was an upgrade from the AA2 level from October 2015. So congratulations on that one. That one does have a direct correlation to the low borrowing cost. Standard & Poor's has you at a AA. That rating hasn't been updated in quite some time. So what we're looking at, if you look on the chart to the right, your high grade rating is AA1, your S&P rating AA. And because of the financing amount, we're considering only going with the Moody's rating since it is a higher one and would give you, not only would you save on the additional rating cost, you would have the higher rate because of the higher rating. Now, for the Series A issuance, given that the bond program is $30 million in aggregate, we have an estimated issuance amount for the Series A bonds of $15 million. If you were to take a look at the bottom left-hand corner, if you issued those bonds today, we're estimating about a 3.98% interest rate. Series B, we're being a little bit conservative at 5%, but assuming conservative assessed valuation growth of 2%, 3%, 4% annually thereafter, which is well below your historic averages, we would comfortably be within the $11.30 per 100,000 of AV that we represented to voters. And one note, this is utilizing the lower cost current interest bonds, so we're not using any of the more expensive financing vehicles, such as capital appreciation bonds. Questions before I turn it over to Nick to review the legal docs?
Hi, good evening, members of the board, Superintendent Vidales and staff. It's a pleasure to be with you again. As Chad mentioned, my name is Nick Hewer. I'm from Stradling, Yucca, Carlson, Roth, the district's bond counsel. I've been in front of you before. Hopefully, it's a familiar face. So I'm going to give us a brief description of the legal documents and the resolution that's being presented to you tonight. So the authorizing resolution is the only governmental action that's required in connection with the issuance and sale of the first series of bonds under Measure U. It establishes the basic terms and parameters of the bonds. It establishes a not to exceed principal amount of $15 million and authorizes the bonds to be sold at a negotiated sale to Stifel Nicholas. The resolution also authorizes the district staff to do all things necessary to complete the financing, and also approves all of the central financing documents, which includes the documents that are listed on the slide above. The preliminary official statement, which is the offering document that's circulated to potential investors, and that document describes and contains all the information that a reasonable investor would want to know before purchasing the district's bonds. The bond purchase agreement is an agreement between the district and Stifel Nicholas in which they will agree to buy the bonds from the district. And that document will contain the final interest rates and terms for the bonds and detail the conditions of closing. And finally, the continuing disclosure certificate, which is an appendix to the preliminary official statement. The district will execute that document at the bond closing. And in that document, the district will covenant to provide investors with annual updates to the information that's presented in the official statement. The district already does that with all of its existing general obligation bonds, so that obligation won't change moving forward. And finally, the next steps in the estimated timeline moving forward. So tonight, you're being asked to approve the authorizing resolution. On March 6th, the district will be making a presentation in front of Moody's, as Chet described. In mid-March, the offering document will be finalized and distributed to investors, with a sale occurring late March and bond proceeds delivered in mid-April. Any questions on the legal documents being presented?
Oh, you do?
Mr. Hewer, did you go over that second resolution? I may have missed it.
Oh,
The purpose of the second resolution.
So the second resolution, which is being considered, is a reimbursement resolution. And so the district is currently planning to finance the staff and faculty housing units from a mixture of general obligation bonds and other funds of the district, with the thought that you might want to reimburse yourself for the use of other district funds at some future date from the issuance of future tax-exempt obligations, whether that be general obligation bonds or other lease-type financing. And the Internal Revenue Code requires that if you are going to be eligible to make that reimbursement, you have to adopt a resolution stating your intention to reimburse. And once you've done that, you can reimburse for all expenditures incurred 60 days prior to the resolution and all expenditures made moving forward. So this resolution doesn't require you to reimburse yourself or advance any district funds. It just preserves the option for you to do that at some later date.
Makes sense.
Any questions from the board? Okay, thank you so much. So the next item is item 10C, resolution number 19-02-27A, a resolution of the Board of Education of the Jefferson Elementary School District, San Mateo County, California, authorizing the issuance of JESD election of 2018 GO bonds, Series A, and actions related thereto.
I move that we approve the resolution number 19-0227A, resolution to authorize the issuance of the Jefferson Elementary School District election of 2018 General Obligation Bonds Series A and actions related thereto.
Second the motion.
There's a first and second to approve resolution number 19-02-27A. Can I get a roll call?
Mr. Ali?
Aye.
Mrs. Brizuela?
Aye.
Ms. Manio? And Mr. Koo?
Aye. That was unanimous. Next item is 10D, resolution number 19-02-27B, resolution of the Board of Education of the Jefferson Elementary School District regarding its intention to issue tax-exempt obligations, the interest with respect to which is excluded from gross income for federal tax purposes.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 1902-27B as presented.
There's a first and second to approve resolution number 19-02-27B. Can I get a roll call?
Mr. Ali?
Aye.
Mrs. Brizuela?
Aye.
Ms. Monio? Aye. Mr. Koo?
Aye. That was unanimous. So next item is item 11A, Certificate of Retirements 2018-2019. The administration recommends approval of the following retirement requests and requests appropriate resolutions be prepared commending them for the years of service with the district. Richard Cacciati, Andrew Coblentz, and Robert Sackett.
I'll make a motion to approve the retirement request and that the appropriate resolutions be prepared honoring them for their service as listed.
Second.
The first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Next item is 11B, certificated resignations. The administration recommends acceptance of the following certificated resignations and requests appropriate resolutions be prepared, committing those with 10 or more years of service. Nika Bogoslavy, Robert Carter, Gradia Sarita Maylene Malone, Patrick Malone, Sandra McCulloch, and Catherine Tompkins.
I know this probably isn't the same person, but Robert Carter, that's not our former superintendent, is it?
No, this one is much younger.
I mean, I had to ask. I mean, things do happen. Okay. And I was making a joke. Okay, so
Ms. McCulloch is in this one, so that's why we're moving slow.
Yeah. Well, I'd like to make a motion then that we accept the retirement for certificated employees for 2018, 2019 as listed, and with the exception not to receive, I read the wrong one, to not approve. No, we'll approve them all.
Just to clarify that motion, this is for certificated resignations and not retirements.
Yeah, I know.
Okay.
I said the wrong thing.
There's a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
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 Next item is item 12A, resignation for classified personnel. The administration recommends approval of the resignations from the following classified personnel requests. Appropriate resolutions be prepared commending those with 10 or more years of service. Maribel Orhalo, Anna Tang, John Christopher Springer. Yep, just those three.
I'll make a motion to approve. Where are we at? It was on here, resignation, okay. The resignations as presented.
Second.
First and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
That's unanimous. So, moving along. Next item's item 13A, Board Policies, Administrative Regulations. Administration recommends updates to the attached Board Policy Administrative Regulations, AR 5111 emissions required as of January 1st, 2019.
Yeah, so this comes to you based on a letter we received from the California's Department of Justice, asking us to be more specific about the kinds of documents that we will accept when it comes to registration, and they wanted us to add the language that you see in 4 or 5. I'll read what can be accepted. One verification can include a certified copy of a birth certificate or statement of the local registrar or county recorder. Second one can be a duly attested baptism certificate. Third verification of age can be a passport. 4 says when none of the above documents is obtainable, a notarized affidavit of the parent or guardian. And 5, other means prescribed by the board, which you haven't prescribed any yet, but it does allow you at some point for you to prescribe another method. This is the genesis of this, is that wanting it to make it easier for families of students who may have had to flee their country quickly, who don't have all of their documents with them, to be able to attest the age of their child to be enrolling in school.
You said one of those is a foreign birth certificate?
It can be a foreign birth certificate, yes. It can be a foreign baptism certificate or a foreign passport as well.
And the other means is left open so that it could be a case by case.
Well, at some point, if we feel like we need to have other means, then I would have you approve that separately. Right now, there is no other means.
As somebody who works at other government agencies, we do accept other forms of ID as well, and some of them.
Excuse me, you accept what?
Other forms
oh, yes.
of ID
Yeah.
for our undocumented clients, and we started accepting their ICE badges as well. So I don't know if that's something. Immigration, sorry.
Yeah. So what we have here is a parent could just write a letter to say my child was born on such and such a date. We don't need to take their badge. They can just write that letter and they can sign it and get it notarized.
Any other questions? If not, I want to take a motion with this item. Is there a motion you would like?
I make a motion to pass Board Policy Administrative Regulation AR 5111 admission as required as of January 1, 2019.
Second.
There's a first and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. That was unanimous. Next item is item 14, under reports from board members on professional development. 14A, board study session, CSBA 2018 Annual Education Conference. Board members Klein, Ku, and Manufo Liaga Anway will highlight some of their learnings as well as give a report about their attendance at CSBA 2018 Annual Education Conference and Trade Show in San Francisco from November 29th to December 1st. So since Ms. Liaga is not here, I will do my presentation. So mine actually goes farther back. I actually have an update in terms of attending delegate assembly. That was on November 27th. And in terms of some of the stuff that was discussed there was an update on a report on school safety and their findings. I can share that information with the district afterwards. They kind of did an overview in terms of talking to other delegates from across California as well as district staff and superintendents in terms of understanding threat assessments being implemented across the state, as well as other trainings and communications that they've done so far. There was also some information about rolling out a new online CSBA training module so that school board members didn't necessarily always have to attend Master in Governance or CSBA trainings to kind of get that information from like the workbooks and textbooks, but rather they could always go back and refer to an online learning center where they can sort of get additional information if they may have forgotten it from their trainings. There was an update on CSBA efforts to sort of better organize statewide and local advocacy efforts. So currently the CSBA is trying to hire PACERs, which are public affairs and community engagement representatives. So they're sort of more of advocates for regional school board members. So say, for example, San Mateo and San Francisco, as well as part of Marin County, has a representative from CSBA whose full-time job is sort of advocate on our behalf. And they're currently hiring those, I think 25 of them across the entire state right now. And they've been actively searching for one for our region. And additionally, they are working on sort of increasing efforts for fundraising for their political action committee, as we sort of kind of more advocacy for education policies, as well as sort of launching a new texting effort to sort of engage school board members as well as education policy advocates to kind of advocate for public education across California. Additionally, they were also talking about their full and fair funding initiative and efforts. So late last year, they started pushing out a new website, fullfairfunding.org, as well as trying to get all districts across California to adopt a resolution to support full and fair funding. Our district actually was one of many others across San Mateo County that actually led the effort, and I think our county is actually about 90% of the way there. I think there's a couple remaining, but we're actually among the highest percentage-wise for any county across California adopting the resolution. They also talked about an equity network, so they are actually working with a set of school board members across California to sort of understand the opportunity gaps that exist across different regions in California and figure out how best to sort of address those issues of getting the most qualified teachers, as well as sort of ensuring that there are rigorous courses and facilities done to make sure that every school district across California are served equitably across the board. And then lastly, there was an update on Prop 64, which was a legalization of marijuana and how that impacts schools. So earlier last year in May, we actually had a workshop with delegates across California to sort of kind of brainstorm and understand the impacts of the legalization of marijuana across schools, whether it's for staff, students, parents, and sort of understanding how best that sort of affects schools in general, as well as any additional regulations that may be kind of laid out in the near future. So that was a bunch of stuff for Delegate Assembly. There's another one in about 2.5 months, so I can provide an additional update on a lot of those. And in terms of the conference, I attended a couple of them. A couple of the ones that I was going to highlight was one, I attempted one on MTSS and social emotional learning. It was one taught by the Bakersfield City School District, and they have a program called Parent University. I'm not sure if do you guys know about that? So it is a 2-year program. It's a volunteer program on the weekends, and they have, the first year is taught by liaisons within the district, and they focus on PBI's principles for parents. And the year 2 is focused on leadership and advocacy in terms of personal growth for solving mindfulness and kind of social learning for kids. And their program actually, I think, started a couple years ago, and it's a full volunteer program with parents, and they were able to get a couple hundred parents to come out actually on the weekends to actually go to schools and actually serve as, they have a program called Parent as Leaders. So there are parent volunteers that actually come to the schools and actually teach new parents, as well as sort of new parents in the district, on what they're working on in terms of how best they could include them in the process for the schools. So one of the things they did was that they would bring parents into the schools on the weekends and sort of kind of walk around school facilities and actually grade them and actually sort of understand, like in terms of rubric, what are working, what's not, as a way to sort of get them in the conversation. And then they actually changed their approach in terms of the school year too, so that the first 3 days of the school year for every kid wasn't actually focused on learning, but rather it was actually focused on a toolkit they created for social emotional learning for students. So they actually made sure that every kid had that curriculum before the school year actually started. So they actually had a good footing before they can actually learn. And then I think every year it's actually pretty much expanded over and over. And it sounds like a great program just as a way sort of what they built so far, as well as something they've done internally. And then additionally, another one that I was just going to highlight was there was a workshop from our sister district, the Jefferson Union High School District. They presented about their workforce housing project. It was about 150 school board members and superintendents from across California. They kind of gave an overview of what they've done so far, as well as a lot of sort of answering a lot of questions from other districts across California, because it sounds like it's a wide discussion right now across everyone out there, figuring out how best to sort of kind of build housing that actually addresses the affordability crisis across California. At the same time, making sure that we actually provide what we need for teachers and staff to actually be able to live and teach close by where they work. So yeah, that was it for me. Next item is item 15, governance team member comments, reports, and reflection on board meeting guidelines. First.
The meeting guidelines, I chose the first one. We'll keep our focus on the best interest of our students. I think especially with the two architectural firms, it was easy to, get led a little into the weeds and and in the back of my mind, I made sure that I kept the students at the forefront of my mind.
Oh, yeah, we will keep our focus on the best interests of our students, and hopefully we'll have our new one done our new list done pretty soon, because we got rid of some of them. You ready? You can do it.
So I have a short report. I, along with Superintendent Vidales, visited George Washington School, and we visited the after-school programs, and we're very impressed by the level of engagement of the students and just the happiness of the staff and willingness to be there after school and work with the students. And this is one of the after-school programs that's run by the district and not, an outside agency. So I just wanted to commend everyone there. And then, number one, we will keep our focus on the best interests of our students, was what I focused on tonight.
For me, I guess I'll keep it the same. We'll keep our focus on the best interests of our students as well. And I thought we'd do that tonight. And then me and Ms. Visuela, we had a committee meeting on the budget with Mr. Vidales and Ms. Kessler, I think last week, or was it 2 weeks ago, to review plans to kind of meet our budget goals for the second interim report, and we'd kind of discuss expected kind of reductions for the county to approve in terms of making sure that we're in line in terms of our reductions, and we have a clear path to a balanced budget for the coming year. And that will be presented at the next meeting and will not result in any positions being eliminated by any staff, to keep our financial goals in mind for the short term and for the future. Yeah. So next item is item 16, persons wishing to address the board on closed session items. Seeing none, we will convene to closed session at 9:30 p.m. Thank you.